Imagine why I cared that. I'm here in Headford, in a wee wooded place. I thought I would have hit the road earlier, but I slept on. I couldn't sleep very well last night for thinking, and I slept on a wee bit about 8:30 this morning. Then I've been catching up on my journal and on social media and doing things. So I'm late getting on the road, but I have about 6 hours walking to do to get me into Galway. And you know, it's going nowhere. I'll get there. So, after staying up in the mountain there with in Dora's place, Damien left me to where he picked me up the last day outside Castle Bar, and he went off to the ferry. And thanks, Damien, for everything you did. We did it because with no internet. We just did 2 or 3 little interviews with Damien, and he did one on NATO. He does a lot of research, and it was brilliant. And just on his time in Ireland, and I have some photos. We'll do a wee reel and a wee tribute to Damien because he's a legend, like, in fairness to him. So Damien went, and I hit the road, and I got as far as Partry, and I slept in behind a wall there. But what a contrast, walking down from Sligo to Castle Bar and meeting the people around Castle Bar and Alina and down in Westport. From I started walking out of Castle Bar, I noticed that there were no horn beeps, no odd one here and there. And the whole day, it was a nice walk, but the whole day, nobody interacted. I stopped twice for food. Once at a shop, I was sitting outside. Once at a garage, sitting outside with my sign and everything. Nothing. I don't understand it. It's so different. Like, even when I was walking up through that loyalist part of the East Coast, the most colourful place I was in was called Cloghy. And even in the petrol station there, people were talking to me and they were giving me money. Not down here, not in this part of Mayo. I don't know why, but it's a different experience. So that was that day. I talked to 2 people. I talked to a young English couple stopped with me, and then I passed a fella called Brian, who's home from Australia. He had a wee digger hired, and he was burying cables at his uncle's house. And Brian knew the score, so we had a good talk about what's going on in the world, and that was good. But so the next day, same thing, boy. No horns beeping, no interaction in the shops, outside the shops, nothing, absolutely nothing. I walked the whole day, nobody spoke, nobody, not one person, until I got up near Headford, and this young fella was at a junction. I showed you the video, young Paul, and he was all smiles, and what are you at? And I got him to pull over. I said, I'd love to do a wee video of the load of turf and yourself, and we chatted for a while. And he wasn't aware much of Paul. He knew what was going on was bad. So I was able to kind of put it into context for him. You know, how would he feel if strangers came and were harassing him and his daddy and his mummy and his family out of that, stealing his cattle and his sheep, and backed up by the Irish army and the Irish government, and the Palestinian government were talking out of both sides of their mouths. How would he feel? And I think he already knew it was bad, but he just wasn't aware of it, the wee fella. And so he went on, but he messaged me last night about 9:30, and he asked was it okay, and he offered to come and get me if I wanted to get a shower or to bring me anything. So he's a great young fella. And it turned out, you know, the wee cottage I did the reel on earlier in the day, that's about 4 miles away from where we met. Next door neighbour. He lives beside that house. Another wee coincidence, isn't it? So that was Paul. And then I pitched my tent here in Headford, just near the mart, in behind some trees, and it's a good spot. And there's a supermac up the road, and I went up there and had some food and charged my phone. But my power pack's empty. My phone has run down overnight. I don't know how, because I switched it off, but I was up a couple of times and I was on Facebook during the night, so I must have drained it a bit. So I'll have to go up there again and try and charge up my phone. So it's going to be a late start, but I need a rest, I suppose. But that road down to, from Partry anyway, up to Partry and beyond, it wasn't too bad. But the road yesterday, it was so dangerous. Went bends, brows of hills, and speeding cars. Really, really dangerous. And I did feel in danger a few times. And I don't want to worry you, but I have to tell the truth. There was one car came, and I think it was accidental. He seemed to not see me or whatever, and in the last minute he veered off the road, out around me. And that wasn't too bad. And when I'm walking, I'm afraid that someone either won't see me or someone will see the flag and the sign and act the smart fella and try to scare me. And so I'm always watching the traffic in front and walking against the traffic. And when I crossed into Galway, it happened. A black vehicle was speeding or driving very fast anyway, and he didn't slow down when he saw me, and I had nowhere to go. There's just like a wall, nettles, there's no 6 inches maybe. And as I was watching him, he started to come towards the yellow line towards me, and I got into the nettles as best I could. I'd say 4 inches was the difference between me and that car. I wasn't afraid of that, but I was angry because if it wasn't reckless, it was definitely deliberate. And that's something I've been worried about. That's the first time it happened, and apparently, but most of the roads are quite good. You have a green verge, a grass verge, or you have those, the hard shoulder to go into. But if that's the main road into Galway, it's very poor. So, and then, where was I? Ballinrobe. I did an interview with Galway FM. They just phoned me up and said, "Do you want to talk to John?" And I said, "Aye," and they phoned me up, and I just got going. And I listened back to it there this morning, and I'm fairly happy with it as an amateur, because I kind of covered everything I would have liked to have covered. So you can listen back to it through the link. And thanks to Galway FM and John for doing that. And thanks for Brian Sweeney, who has organised that. He has contacts, and he said he can get us exposure on maybe Clare FM and other stations as we go around. So I'm grateful to Brian for that. But the danger on the roads yesterday then set me to thinking, as it does, about the Palestinians and how dangerous it is for them not only to be in their houses but to go out onto the roads. They take their life in their hands every time they go out. And so when I was coming in the West Bank in the service, that's a wee yellow minibus that they all use in Palestine. It's a great way of travelling, and you all kind of pay a portion of the fare. You hand it over to the driver as you're driving along. It's great. And I learned the first service I got into, I gave the man a tip, and he looked at me as if I had two heads. And I asked Majid about that the other day, and she said, no, in Islam, tipping is forbidden because they see it as payment for the slave. So, and I knew by the man's reaction that it wasn't a good thing to do. That was the one and only time I did it, thankfully. So you don't tip in Muslim countries. That's not a thing. But when I was travelling into the West Bank, one of the first things I saw was young Palestinian men taken out of their cars, kneeling on the ground with their hands behind their heads. Further on up, and at gunpoint, further on up the road, I saw 3 men, same thing, kneeling on the ground, hands on their heads, and the white blindfold around their eyes. Those boys were just out, maybe going to their work or coming home from the work. That was the evening. Standing at gunpoint, maybe a teenage girl or boy with a machine gun, and as Samir said to us there a few days ago, might keep you for hours and then wag the finger like that that you can go on with your life. Some teenage girl, like, or boy, doing that to you. Maybe doing that to you in front of your children in the car. That happens all the time. That's humiliation. And it's one of the reasons Samir left. That, it's just, is it any wonder that some of the Palestinians just explode, literally? And you can't blame them. And there would be, like, I spent a watch with this man, I had Jeffrey, watching over the family, and he was from Sinjil. I might do a video about what he told me about Sinjil. But not only had they took all the dumas of land that they owned for generations around that town, and Ayad has lost his home, he's just holding on to his house. They put gates on the village, they put gates on it, and they can just turn up, close the gates for a week, and you can't get in or out. There are checkpoints, only one road in and out. Ambulance can't get in. It's horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous. And then when I was in Jericho, I noticed this. I could tell you a story about being in Jericho and the man that he drove me around all day, and I met his wife and his baby and his daughter. I will actually do a video about my time in Jericho because it just shows you what the Palestinian people are. But there was a queue of cars, a big long line of cars. This was in the evening time. And he said to me, those people were going to the Jordanian border, which isn't far from Jericho. He says, but they just, on a whim, closed the border. And those people might be going for flights to go to America, wherever they're living, or going out for whatever reason. A lot of Palestinians live in Jordan, but they might have family in Palestine. Regularly, they just decide, right, you're not getting out. And those people have travelled. And an hour's journey in Palestine can turn into a 6-hour journey, so there's no way they can go back home. They have to wait at the border, sleep in their cars overnight to get in, because instead of the border being open to 9 as it should be, they have decided to close it at 3. And the only reason to do that is because they see the line of cars and they enjoy that. They're making that miserable for those Palestinian people. It's evil, is what it is. And I mean, I didn't even see the village of Al-Magir because it was so intense what was going on. We were just engrossed with watching over the families and trying to avoid getting arrested. But towards the end, they made me the financial coordinator of the group, so it was my responsibility to go and get food for them. And so Kazai, Abu Hammam's son, and Hamid, the grandson, who he was such a wee gentleman. Young Paul with the turf reminded of him, because Mohammed had started to drive the car, and he was just such a gentleman. A big handshake and a smile, and he'd come and meet us at the road whenever we were coming up and walk up with the family. Just a brilliant young fella, like Paul and all the other young people, Brody, and all the good lads that's out there and girls. But they were taking me into another town. I don't believe there's a shop in Al-Magir. I'm not sure. I don't know. I wasn't there. But they took us on up the road to another place. But that's an experience, because they have a community village WhatsApp group, because they would pull in the side of the road, check on the group, ask is the road clear, go on a bit, pull in another bit. And the old car, you could hear the old cars coming. The roads are rough, they're dirt paths, and you could hear the drop links rattling and the drive shafts screeching. You could hear the car coming a mile away. But that's the way how they have to travel. They travel a mile, find out is the road clear or not, because them army stop them. They end up arresting them for nothing, or people get shot. And Kazi got a puncture along the way, tire punctured. He drove her on the flat wheel for about 3 miles, pulled into this garage. Palestinian men were, this was in the evening, dark, and maybe 8 o'clock at night. Palestinians there, all excitement, big handshakes and smiles, made us sit round the stove while the tire was being replaced, brought us tea, sat around joking and laughing, and who are you and where he's from, and smoking cigarettes, and it was just such a brilliant experience. Like, and then because they brought us into town, we got our groceries, and then we come back a completely different route. We were driving through olive groves and up these wee lanes, and driving with lights off, all to avoid the army, you know. And so every single part of their life is affected by these strangers with their guns and their jeeps, but they just go. They have a love life, and they do not complain. And that's why I say I never complain about anything in my life again. Hopefully, you know, when I'm tempted to, I check myself. So I'm going to be late on the road. I'm going to have to go up to the Supermax here, charge my phone, get a coffee. I'll let you know when I hit the road and what time I'll be in Galway. But I don't think anyone should go on the road to meet me unless you know that it's safe. There's a hard shoulder for you to walk on with me. But if it's the way it's been so far, I don't think it's a good idea. I'll meet you near in the city. So, sinné, saoirse don Palestine, Alliance amach, agus Staden Clugge. Slán.